Where have you been?
Seriously? Over
What's
7
this guy
months?
again?
Are you kidding?
He really said,
I finally got 1,000 subscribers. I guess I don't have to keep doing anything anymore. Alright, some explanations are in order. First of all, I do want to apologize for the fact that I haven't made an actual video on this channel in about 7 months or so. But we're hitting close to 8 months at this point. But I do want to apologize for that. There are a lot of factors that contribute to my lack of uploads on this channel, including this little fellow named Thor and that big guy over there named Rex. Now, I would love to go into more details about my adventures for the past couple months, but that's not what this video is about. But you will be able to catch me live here on the channel. We're going to do a live stream basically a week from the time this video goes live. So I'll show all the details on the screen right now so you guys can come by, join, let's talk, have some fun, chill out, relax, you know, just a good old time. One of those classic random vlog streams I used to do, so we can talk about that there. But this video is not about any of that, right? That's not what you all came here for. So, welcome anime fans to a brand new anime time with yours truly. Today's topic is a strange take on the isekai genre from back in 2013. Let's welcome Dog and Scissors. Alright, so this first section is for those who have never seen my videos before, especially this series, which I don't blame you. I'm a really small channel. But that's besides the point, okay? But if this isn't your first rodeo and you've seen an anime time on the channel before, feel free to skip to the next chapter down below, as you can see, and we'll see you there. But if you did stick around, I'm going to give you a quick explanation of how this series on this channel goes. First off, all the videos are divided into chapters, which each one representing a different part of this review, right? This is an anime review show, and where we talk about the anime, we talk about like a little bit of the story and what it's entailed. We're talking about the visuals and the audio, sound design and stuff like that. We talk about some of the characters. I don't go into full detail on every single character shows up and so. And then we do have a spoiler sections near the end where I talk about basically what happens either in the last few episodes or in the last episode of this anime, with closing up final thoughts about what I thought about the series as a whole, and give you guys my rating. Now, my ratings are a little different from what normally other anime review people do. You know, they usually give you like a number out of 10 or this show compared to another show or something like that, whether it's worth watching. I actually go and I have 4 different criteria that I'm going to explain to you guys right now of how we handle these shows. So the first level, right, this is the don't bother category, which is basically for shows that I don't find interesting enough that I don't want to recommend it to anybody else, right? I'm not here to bash any shows, by the way, but if I watch the anime and I don't feel that type of spark or joy with it, I usually always finish the shows for you guys for these reviews. So if I don't think it's worth it for me to watch it, I'm not going to recommend it to you. So that's where the don't bother rating comes in. The check it out rating means that I think the show is okay near the beginning, and I think that if you decide to continue forward, it might be okay, right? But if it doesn't hook you in like the first like 2 or 3 episodes, then you're probably not going to really care about the rest of it. There is a caveat, right? If the show is like a really long series, right, we're talking about like 100 episodes or more, then I might make it towards a little bit longer of a time sink that I would recommend if I do think it's worth at least investing some time into it. But for the most part, if it's a check it out, it means I don't really generally think that it's worth going all the way to the end if it doesn't get you at a specific point in the series. The watch it rating means that I think it's worth sticking it to at least the halfway point of an anime, right? Especially if it's a short series, and you know, if you get to the halfway point, then if you like it by then, just finish it. And if you don't, it's like, you didn't invest too much time into it, and you might have a feel of what the story is about, and maybe you can figure out what the ending is going to entail. So at that point, like, there's no point in continuing. For a longer series, then my usual go-to is like maybe like a first, depending if it's based on arcs, right? Then depending on like a couple arcs in, if you haven't really jived with it, I don't think it's worth it. And the highest rating I have is the finish it / marathon rating, which means I personally think it's worth going all the way to the finale, right? If it's a show that I personally think is good enough for me to enjoy all the way to the end, then I think that it might intrigue you. If the review really resonates with you, then I definitely think it's worth going all the way to the last episode of the show. And if the anime stops without actually having a complete ending, but like it's so good that you can go on and read the supplementary material, like the light novels or a manga or whatever that stuff, then I definitely will like plug it in there, like, oh, I really think this is worth even going far and beyond, right? So that's what this final rating is for. So those are the 4 levels of ratings that I have in terms of my reviews. So without further ado, we'll actually start with the review. Another day, an outfit change, just for you all. Okay, so to start off the review portion of this video, we're going to talk about the story. So I'm going to give you guys a brief rundown of what this show is about, and then we'll go from there. So I do have my notes / script on the right side of my monitor, so I'm going to be glancing over there every once in a while to finally, get a little bit of an idea of where I'm supposed to be. So if you see me, checking, that's what it is, just so you know. So the basic premise of the show involves our main protagonist, Kazuhito Harumi. I really don't know which is the right pronunciation. I'm sorry, I'm not Japanese, okay? But I'm assuming that's what it is. He's basically like a book fanatic. Like, all he cares about is books. He's a high school student who's just fascinated by the worlds that books create, right? Fortunately for our boy, while he's in a cafe reading his book, he dies tragically in a robbery gone wrong. Now, he does this to protect our second main character, Kirihime Natsuno, right? As I stated in the intro portion of the video, this is like an isekai gone wrong. Because what ends up happening is that because he's so fascinated with books, right? There's one particular book franchise that he's been reading, and the last book of the series hasn't come out, and he just has to read it before he dies. So this magically makes it to where he reincarnates as a dachshund. A dog like this. Now you know why I showed you my pets from before. But anyways, basically, when he comes back to life, he ends up getting adopted by Kirihime, who is the person who he sacrificed his life to save. Ironically, right, she's the author of his favorite book series. And because of this connection that they now have, she actually can understand him. Well, she's the only person that can actually understand him. Well, because he talks, but really speaking, he's a dog. So everybody just hears him barking. But Kirihime can actually understand what he's saying. So they have this telepathic connection so she ends up being able to actually communicate with him, and vice versa. Now, the other side of the show is that there's just a bunch of hijinks that happen in every episode. They try for them to try to adjust to this new normal that they have. We do get some random romance tropes, which honestly are a little awkward in times. And then we also have like these weird stereotypical tsundere moments from Kirihime, which is, awkward considering the fact that she's a woman and it's a dog. And then throughout the show, we also meet a wide cast of random characters that range from like rival authors to Kirihime, a weird deadly maid, an extremely overly attached sister, and even a masochist agent / book editor who would make the most professional dominatrix blush. I do want to mention that one of the poor aspects of this anime when it comes to the story is that most of the episodes don't actually feel like they're progressing the plot forward. And while we do have some episodes that are like tied together, like they're like two-parters or something like that, most of them don't really feel like they flesh out the actual main storyline of this show. Also, most of the characters that we end up meeting throughout the show, they kind of give this hint that they're supposed to be important, but for the most part, they just end up turning into like random cameos in other episodes or like thrown off for like one-off gags. And there's also plenty of cringe-worthy moments that make your skin crawl if you're not really like in tune with what the show is trying to sell you. But there are some episodes where they do have those like sweet moments that really like pull on your heartstrings. I personally feel they're too few and far between. All in all, the story for the show is pretty basic and generic, but there are some things you could find some enjoyment in theory. In terms of the art style, the show looks really decent, especially during those close-up dialogue shots that they end up doing. I also enjoy what the animators did with Kazuhito's his dog form hair, where like it has it on top of his head and like flickers depending on his emotions, like whether if he's like excited or freaking out or scared or frustrated or angry. Like they always have like this quick little like fluff animation that they do, which I thought personally was adorable. They also have a lot of nice set pieces, like depending on where the show is supposed to take place, like whether it's a park or a bookstore or like even Karuhime's like apartment. Like all the set pieces like really look nice. Like I think they were beautifully done, right? They all look nice, and they thematically they fit And also that correlates like the night scenes. Like there's some episodes that do include like a night scene. And that was, I personally think it was very beautifully done. And for the most part, like no two places look alike, unless you're like going back to like the same location. Every place feels like unique and purposeful. And going back to like Kirihime's apartment, you know, the place looks exactly like an author's place would look. Like it's a big apartment, and you just see stacks of books. Like just because you know when authors, they're not only like taking notes from other authors that they enjoy, but like whatever they make, you know, they have like a bunch of copies in their own houses. So like it feels like I felt like I was in an author's place when they had those scenes, which were for the majority of part most of the like interactive scenes between Kirihime and Kazuhito were usually in her house. So those were always nice. Note for those viewers that end up wanting to decide to watch this show, the action scenes, and I'm putting them in quotes because realistically speaking, most of the action scenes don't really matter. In fact, they're like maybe 1 to 2 shots most of the time. There's really not a lot of fights in this show. But because of the fact that the show is not centered around fights or actions or anything like that, they feel a little choppy a lot of the times. And because they're so nonchalant about it even in the middle of the fight, right? It just feels like random dialogue. It doesn't really mesh well, at least for me. They also tend to reuse a lot of gag scenes. Like, for example, one of the most prominent gags is that when Kazuhito like pisses off Kirihime for whatever reason, like they do this like cut off where, because she is always carrying scissors for second reason, they don't fucking explain it. And she like cuts him, but you know they actually don't show it because they don't want to show abuse of an animal in a show. But they tend to reuse that gag a lot, where she gets pissed, they show her getting upset, pulling out her scissors, and then do the cutaway to him screaming, and then all of a sudden like they're back to wherever they were walking, and he has like a mark somewhere on his body of where she cut him. Like I said, they reuse that a lot, and it kind of got tiring at a certain point. In terms of the audio design, I do want to say I don't think there was a lot of memorable things that happened. The opening was like whatever. We didn't really bother watching it. In fact, I think after like the first or second episode, we just skipped it all the way. And we didn't really bother with like the outro, the ending song, because I don't know, it's just we're trying to get through the anime as fast as possible, and the ending song wasn't anything to write home about either. And so like for the most part, since the show tends to lean more into a comedic style, most of the music in the background doesn't really, like, you don't really notice it. And that's not technically all the time like a bad thing, because you're not supposed to be focusing entirely on the ambience of the music. But usually, you know, a background soundtrack actually helps elevate the scene, which does happen when we have those like inner dialogue, you know, moments in the show where either the characters are thinking to themselves, they're having a deep conversation with somebody else. Those scenes, I do gotta admit that the background music was on point. I personally was on point, but just like everything outside of that, like I didn't feel like anything else like elevated the scenes, right? There was no background music that really, for me, felt were elevating the scenes enough to write home about. And then once again, the action scenes, those, like I said, visually they weren't that appealing, and there was nothing to write home about when it comes to the music, because for the most part, it was all like tongue-in-cheek stuff that they were trying, like, it's literally just quips between the characters that were involved in the action, right? So for the most part, there's really no but you know, like when you expect for like an action scene, like some pump up music to like get your blood boiling, like, oh god, let's go, like guess the juice is flowing. No, we didn't get any of that. Okay, I'm warning you right now, you're not gonna get any of that for that, for those scenes. But like I said, I like to call them action scenes, and I always gotta say actions, because realistically speaking, they don't feel like true action scenes, you know, like other animes would portray them. Overall, visually and audibly, like, the show has some things going for it, but like not too much that really like knocks it out of the park. For example, like there's a lot of things that lack in my opinion, and there's not too many things that truly elevate the show to a higher standard because of how it looked or how it sounded. Alright, now while I did mention in the introductory part of this video that there was a lot of characters that are introduced in this show, for the most part, since a lot of them feel like one-off gags, I originally was just going to talk about the two main characters, you know, Kazuhito and Kirihime. However, after talking to my wife, who did watch this show with me, she recommended I at least bring up 2 of the side characters that do show up, and they're, at least they're the more prominent ones of all of them. They tend to show up more frequently than the rest, right? So I figured might as well bring those up. So to start off, we're gonna talk about Kazuhito's younger sister, Madoka Harumi. Now, I want to say, I mentioned this before, realistically speaking, only Kirihime understands Kazuhito at all. And they tried to do this fake out when they introduced Madoka, where, like, she laid a trap Kazuhito used to live, and then, like, basically dog-napped him, right? And they tried to do this whole fake out where she, like, understands him, but realistically speaking, when they actually showed the other side of the conversation, she's only hearing barking, which just goes to show that realistically, nobody else can understand Kazuhito. And when they do this whole thing with Kirihime, I guess, like, because they end up going into, like, this rivalry thing, because for some weird reason, they I don't know why shows do this, but I guess, like, a trope, and I should be used to it by now. But she's basically the over-obsessed younger sister who was, like, really, I don't want to say infatuated with her older brother, because they never portrayed that, but, like, you kind of had that feeling where she really wanted to always, and on top of the fact, because he moves away from her and the rest of the family to where he was living while he was, like, I guess, studying, they had this whole background story of, like she felt so alone and depressed, and she always wanted to find him, and then she found out she died. Like, it became this whole ordeal. Like I said, she becomes, like, a weirdly obsessed sister, and then because he's dead, right? And we know Kazuhito is alive in the dog, right? But she doesn't know that. So Kirihime does this whole thing where, like, well, you can pretend he's your brother, knowing the fact that he is her brother. It was awkward as hell. And then she becomes truly obsessed at a certain point. Like, it's fucking wild. The obsession that they had this girl go through with this dog, right? And, like, they have this weird gag where she cooks, but they do that, like I said, it's a comedy show, so everything has to be haha, like, good laughs. She fucking sucks at cooking. So, like, she creates these abominations of curry that are, like, glowing blue, and you're just like, that is toxic waste, and if you eat it, you die, right? And they have this gag that since, like, when he was alive, like, she would make these concoctions for him, and then he'll, like, puke his guts out and stuff like that. And so, like, he has a fear of her when she tries to cook. I don't know, it becomes this whole and now that he's a dog, like, oh, he can eat it. Like, you're gonna, I would call animal protective services on this bitch if she fed that to the dog, because that's dangerous, right? And then, like I said, because the rivalry ends up happening with her and Kirihime, like, one of the action scenes that I was talking about earlier is a fight between both of them. Kirihime fights with scissors. That's, like, the whole gag of, like, I guess the pun of the show, dog and scissors, because he's a dog and she's always carrying scissors. So her main weapon is scissors, like I said. Joke of action scenes. And then this bitch has, like, a fucking, like, tuna knife shredder or something. I don't fucking know, but it's literally like a chainsaw. The bitch pulls out, like, in one of those, like, giant bags that people, like, carry instruments in. She takes that out, and it's like a giant saw but for her, it's like for sushi, like making fish and cutting it up. But it's like a chainsaw, and it's I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. Like, you cannot take these action scenes seriously when you have joke things like that, right? So, like, they have that whole ordeal, and then, like, she kind of, like, chills out a little bit, but then they have this whole thing where every time she, like, randomly pops up, Kirihime is like I'll talk more about her in a bit, but the whole romance aspect of the show, right? The whole Kirihime is a person and Kazuhito's a dog, and they have this whole thing. So, like, it gets to the point where Kirihime is telling Madoka to call her sister because they're gonna get married, right? Her and the dog are gonna get married, which is gonna make her sister-in-law. So she should look at her like a big sister. But obviously, because Kazuhito's technically dead in Madoka's eyes, she's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Leave me alone. So, like, it's this weird dynamic they try to push that does not work, because at the end of the day, nobody knows this bitch is alive, right? Except for Kirihime. So it's like, bro, why are you even doing this? Like, it's just, I guess the whole, like, oh, pretend he's your brother, and then we're sisters now. It becomes awkward, I'm telling you. Next up, we're gonna talk about Suzuna Hiragi, something like that. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a weird, the way they spell it. It's a little it's a little weird for me to visualize and try to pronunciate for you guys. But she is Kirihime's editor for basically her most popular series, which is like the 7 Deadly Sins. She is the masochist I told you guys about in the introduction. She is she's a character, okay? Now I want to say like her masochist tendencies are wild, and I'm being honest, like the bitch like will randomly show up and like just tie herself up in the middle of the apartment, right? Just like, hey, like you haven't made anything, or like, hey, how you doing? Like because she's the editor for Kirihime, so she needs something for her to be able to work on. And because Kirihime is like frustrated, a bunch of stuff happens throughout the series, by the way. I'm just telling you right now. But she's like gives her just glares. All of a sudden, she's like throwing herself on the ground and like wanting her to cut her. Like she's like, cut me, like do something to me. Really weird, really gross, very awkward. I'm just gonna put it like that. And like there's this one episode where they go to like a spa or some shit, and she's there on a masochist retreat where there's just a bunch of people that just like being tied up in the middle of this room. Like they have a room reserved for this group, and she's there, and she's like tied up to the ceiling, and like I'm telling you, she's fucking. It's something, okay? I'll just say it's something. Like she is obsessed with Kirihime because of the fact that Kirihime is such a like ice cold bitch, right? So like she likes being around her because she gets assaulted all the time, which gives her like, I don't know, her kinks in check, you know, and she just has her moment, and they do show some things, and you're just like, bro, I did not know I was signing up for this crap, okay? I'll just say that. But one thing I will give her is that she is smart. They do show her being intelligent. Like I said, she's obsessed with Kirihime to the point where she wants to do everything to get her ahead in the game, right? In terms of like her popularity, making sure her books sell better. Like she's very focused on her, her own career to help Kirihime become the best author she can be, while also having this weird like masochist tendencies. Okay, I gotta harp on that a little bit, but it's fucking weird when if you do see the show, you'll notice it. But at least when it comes to her job, she's very serious about it, and she's also really, really smart when it comes to just random aspects of like how like the societal geist is when it comes to authors and how to sell themselves. And like there's certain things that happen during the show that are somewhat dangerous, and like she's used like as a private investigator, like a detective, trying to get information and gather information for Kirihime and Kazuhito to like solve like random things that happen in the show. It's like a weird thing with her because on the one hand you see her and you're just like, the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me in front? Like why are you doing this randomly in the middle of this apartment? But at the same time you're like, I trust you to get the information I need. Like she's too reliable at what I need, but at the same time, if I'm not careful and I say the wrong thing, she's gonna have an accident on the floor, and I don't want that, right? It's two sides of a coin I was not expecting to see with this random character, okay? And also I want to I did a fake out for you guys. I've been talking this whole time that nobody besides Kirihime understands Kazuhito. But Miss Suzuna apparently, and they never explain this, at least in the anime. I don't know if they do in the rest of like the manga or the light novels, but at least in the anime, they never fucking explain how the fuck she can understand. Like they actually have full blown conversations, and like because, like I said, she's obsessed with Kirihime, and then Kazuhito's always with Kirihime. Anytime Kirihime does something to Kazuhito, she's like, why can't it be me? And they have this thing between them where Kazuhito and Suzuna are like, bro, why? And then that episode was wild when they reveal that shit, and they do this whole thing where I want to say I have to say this because it reminded me. Obviously, this anime is way older, but in Persona 5, you know, when Akechi gets revealed that he knew everything about the Phantom Thieves and all this shit, and they do this whole flashback of like when Morgana said something, right? And what was it about? I think it was about pancakes, and then like he understood about it because he heard somebody talking about pancakes, but nobody else had talked about it besides Morgana. And then you as a player, like, bro, well, it feels like that, right? There's something that Kazuhito says that she repeats, and you don't really pick up on it until way later. It's like, bitch, you've known this. And like I said, they never explain how she does it or how the fuck she's able to understand them, but she does. Okay, now it's finally time to talk to the actual important characters of the show. Starting off with Kirihime Natsuno, who is our scissors demon, right? And not that type. I already see you typing in the comments, no, gross, stop it, okay? So she needs a chill pill, okay? She has these weird violent tendencies that needs to stop, okay? She can't be out here assaulting a dog, right? I understand that he's technically speaking a human being inside of a dog's body, but it's still a fucking dog, right? So please, for the love of God, stop it. Get some help.
Stop it. Get some help.
And then she also has the tsundere moments. Like I said, it's really weird that they try to do this romance subplot between a woman and a dog. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, that's like a stereotype of like white women. But I was not wanting to see that in a show, right? On top of the fact that she physically assaults this dog multiple times throughout the show. They don't show it. Okay? You never see it. But you see the aftermath. And that's not okay. Okay? I do not stand for abusive relationships in the first place. And now you're giving me bestiality. And that's not okay either. Okay? But she is good at her job. She's an amazing writer. She's very talented. Nobody knows who she is though, right? That's the one thing about that I was talking about Suzuna, like trying to get her out there, is the fact that nobody knows who Kirihime is. Like, they know the author, like, because you know how authors tend to have like pseudonyms. Well, she has one out there, and everybody knows that one, but nobody knows what this person looks like. Whereas some of the other rival authors that we see throughout the show, people know who they are, and we've seen them before, so they're out there. But she's the only one that's like, I guess, hidden away from society, and Suzuna's trying to like get her out there, get her face out there, so people know who the fuck this person is. There's an amazing author that people like talk about all the time, and her books are popular enough that a lot of people know about her, and like people are obsessed with her books. It's wild. Okay, I'll just say that it's wild that she's that good, but nobody knows who she is, and she's always away, crawling away, and then always doubting herself. I put it as a note, but realistically speaking, bro, the fucking action scenes are ass all the time, so it doesn't even fucking matter. But just know she fights with scissors, and they don't even show much of what she's supposed to do. Like, they have her with her scissors right here, and then like they clash, and you just see this tiny, like, they're like, I don't have a comparison right now, but they're not big scissors. They're maybe, okay, like when you go to the salon, or like for men, the barber shop, and they have those scissors for like cutting your hair. That's literally what they look like. They're that small, and like she's fighting off like giant swords and metallic brooms, and it's wild. Like, I'm telling you, if you watch this show and you see those action scenes, you're gonna question everything that you are watching. It is wild. But at least she fights, right? She knows how to defend herself, even though she doesn't look that much, right? She doesn't look like she can handle herself, but I guess her inner rage just takes over. And like I said, she has a lot of tsundere moments with Kazuhito that are awkward as hell, and you're just sitting there wondering why we're seeing this, why they have these things. It's not fun. And finally, let's discuss the actual main protagonist of the show, our little Dashcon buddy, Kazuhito Haruman. One thing I do want to state as like the first thing about his character, and it's something that I've always wondered, and even when I did this review like years ago, because this is technically like a remake. I'll talk about more about that in the finale. But they have flashbacks of him as an adult, like, well, not adult, as a human, right? They do, and even in the beginning of the series, they do this thing. They show his body, but they never show his face. Like, every time that they have this flashback looking back at him, like, as a human, doing whatever, with whoever, because there's a bunch of characters in the show that somehow knew him in the past, right? Anytime they show him as a human, like, his face is all blacked out. Like, you have his hair, like, that covers where his eyes would be, but everything else is just, you know, darkened out and shaded out. So you never actually see what he looks like. Like, you have his physical height and like what he his body looks like, but you never see his face, and that's something I never understood why they did it, and there's no explanation about it in the anime. Like I said, maybe more information in like the extra stuff that happens in like the manga or the live novels or whatever, but in terms of the anime, they never explain why they never show his face. He's also very obsessed with books, okay? Even in dog form, all he ever wants to do is just read, right? He has a library full of books in Kirihime's house that he's just spending all his time reading. He goes to the bookstore all the time looking for new books. They know who he is, right? Like as a dog, right? As Kirihime's pet, but they always giving him books. So all the time he's just reading books. Like, bro, get something. I understand that your obsession is the reason why you're alive right now. I get it, but bro, do something else with your life. That it's excessive. But because he reads so much and he's always reading books, and he reads all types of books, right? It's not just from his favorite author, right? Which are just like I don't think they ever explain what the hell the 7 Deadly Sins books are about. Now that I think about it. Anyways, my point is that because he's constantly reading, he's book smart. You know, the typical stereotypical book smart person, and so like when stuff happens, he can analyze it based on what he's read in books before, and then he can take that knowledge and apply it to the current situation that's happening. And I guess that's interesting, right? You have that dynamic because technically every one of these characters is in some way, shape, or form like intelligent. Like I don't think there's one dumb character in the show. Actually, there's one, but I'm not gonna talk about her because she's irrelevant. But for the most part, every character they show have some level of intelligence, which is something that I guess I can give the show props for. And the fact that the main character is technically, like, even if it's book smart, he's smart. Unfortunately, this also comes with a caveat that he's also clueless about everything. So when it comes at least to Kirihime, because like I said, they tried to do this romance plot line between her and the dog, and because he's so dumb when it comes to that type of stuff, he doesn't understand it. And he's only obsessed with books, so he doesn't even pay attention to when she's like flirting, I guess. I wouldn't even want to call it that because like I said, I don't feel comfortable with it, and even then it doesn't even feel like that, so it doesn't even fucking matter, right? But he's just out of it, and that causes a lot of the tsundere moments with Kirihime, is because he's so dumb, he doesn't notice these things, and he says the wrong thing, she gets pissed, and something happens, and it's a cycle that we all, and that's all the characters I'm going to talk about. So moving on to the spoiler section, I'll see you all there. The finale was garbage. Good night. Alright. I know that wasn't very descriptive at all, so I should probably go into a little bit more details. The problem with this show and the finale, and it's something that I alluded to a lot in the other parts, is that most of the episodes don't feel like they really drive the narrative forward. They don't feel like they expand the story. Doesn't feel like the anything is moving ahead to finding why Kazuhito turned into a dog officially, right? Like Kirihime doesn't make any progress with writing the final book that Kazuhito wants to read before he died. There's no resolution with any of the other random side characters that we see. There's like one random character that shows up near the finale that ends up not mattering at all, but it's like tied to another side character we meet earlier in the series, and it's just like a bunch of stuff like that. And the only thing that happens in the last episode is we get like a drunk scene. Basically they're at home and Kirihime starts drinking and Suzuna's there and they're like celebrating something. I don't remember what it was that they were doing, but they were drinking. And they do what they always tend to do, where when you're drunk, it's like the real you, but it's like the opposite of what you normally portray yourself at. So Kirihime, being a violent sadist who tortures and maims anything in her path, becomes a really like lovey-dovey, all over you, like cutesy type of person. And then like Kazuhito's weirded out, Suzuna's dying because like this isn't what she signed up for, right? She's a masochist. She needs pain and suffering for her to have pleasure and enjoyment in her life. And then Kirihime is over here telling her how much she appreciates her and how she's like the thing that keeps her going and she loves her and all this other shit. Like, and she's like dying. Literally, they show her soul leaving her body because this is not what she likes and appreciates. So like her whole life is just dying away because too much niceness is the exact opposite of what she enjoys and loves. And Kazuhito's weirded out by all this. And like they do this whole thing where Kirihime is envisioning a fucking marriage and a wedding and everything with her and the dog. And it's... Bro! It's just not. It's just not. And like all the characters that show up during the series, like they show up in this weird like in like fantasy life that she's created, and like it's just not okay. Right? It's not okay. They do this whole thing, and the thing is that during this whole time she's actually with Kazuhito in the apartment doing all this stuff, and like the whole thing ends right where she takes him to the bedroom, the dog, right? And he's like freaking out because he knows what's happening. And it's not what you're thinking. The problem is she's fucking drunk, right? And like this whole time she's been doing all this shit in her fantasy world, not correlating that stuff is happening in real life. And she ends up puking on the dog. Just full on, just chunks flowing out of her all over this poor dog. And it makes you question life, okay? It makes you question everything. And the thing is, she doesn't remember shit the next morning. And they're still having... Now Kazuhito's like, bro, I don't want anyone near you. I'm done with life, you know? And that's where it ends. It's literally just an awkward scene that had no purpose being here. It was cringe as fuck, okay? I didn't like it. It was not fun, and it doesn't do anything to progress the story in any meaningful way. Now, for you all, okay, I took the extra step to investigate. This isn't technically the end of the story. There is more information if you want to read the manga, right? If you actually watch the show, by the way. I'm not done, but if you ever actually decide to watch it, there is extra stuff. Like, the manga continues, and the light novel has more information. So, there is differences from what I was reading between the light novel canon and the manga canon. You do with that information what you will. This finale was garbage, and I did not have any fun with it. Alrighty, so we have made it to the end of this review where we talk about my final thoughts, give you guys my overall rating, and just do the final end of the video stuff that people do. So overall, was this show any good? I don't personally think so, okay? I did review this show years ago, right? And it's like the first, remake of a review that I'm doing. And I do want to apologize to my beautiful wife because we were looking at my past reviews and she looked at the title of this one. She wanted to know, and I didn't remember anything about this series. And I thought it was a dog grooming show because of what it looked like. For completely forgetting the type of show this really is. Okay, I don't know how I stomached it when I was. Then again, I was younger. I was dumber, and my mind wasn't as it is today. Right, I've matured and grown up a lot in the span of, I don't know, like 13, 14 years. I don't remember exactly when I watched the show. Okay, but it was definitely a long time ago. Right, I do not think this is a good show. Okay? I like watching it again. Maybe it's my age. Okay, maybe I'm too old to just really enjoy the jokes anymore, and I think everything is cringe, you know, when it comes to a lot of the stuff that happens in the show, and I don't find a lot of the stuff endearing anymore. Maybe that's just me, but I mean, my wife didn't enjoy it either. So basically, two people, but we're, like I said, we're technically a little older than when I was when I watched it initially. So who knows? Tastes change over time. So I personally don't think it was. I don't want to take that away from the creators, right? I'm not saying that it's not good for a specific demographic of people, right? I'm sure somebody out there could find enjoyment in watching this show, right? But overall, I didn't have fun with it. Like most of the time, it just felt like we were just powering through to get to the end, which is not what you want when you're watching a series. Characters were like they have their moments, but for the most part, I don't think they elevate the show enough. Like there's some shows where the story is kind of pathetic, but the characters really make it, so it's worth watching just for that. but they're not good enough to elevate this non-existent plot that is in the show. Nothing gets resolved. Most of the characters don't really impact the story in any meaningful way. The gags are excruciatingly nauseous, and as they're done in excess, to where they just wear out really fast. I don't think it's worth it. Okay, so my rating, technically speaking, if it was up to me, I would tell you don't bother watching it. But I do understand that there is something that you can potentially find enjoyment out of it. So my recommendation and my official rating for Dog and Scissors is to check it out. And if you do watch it and enjoy it, or you watch it and you're like, Sore-san, what the fuck did you have me watch? I want to say, fair warning, I did tell you everything about the show if you watch this review all the way through. So I still want to hear your thoughts. If you end up watching it, tell me your experience. If you don't watch it, you're just like, thank you, Sore-san, for saving me. Like, I had this in my watch list, like I was going to watch it. Now I don't have to bother with it anymore. Okay, leave me know in the comments. Just tell me all your experiences. And also tell me what you guys thought about the video, right? Leave me in the comment section below. This series, I want to make more of it, but it's more like I really need to find the time for it. But I'm hoping that this coming year, I'll be able to make more of these. My wife and I already have plans for the next show that we're going to watch, which is another remake. And then after that remake, we're probably going to do like a brand new review of a show, and then do a remake after that. But all this is contingent on you guys' support. So, like I did with the previous anime time on the channel, which you will see in the end card, you can watch that one and then see the differences or whatever you want to do. But anyways, these videos, because they're so time consuming and they are a lot for me personally, they do have like goals. Now, the last time, I think I did like 5 likes or 6 likes or something like that. So because we're still starting this series up again, you know, I'm not asking for too much. I want to do like 7, 8 likes is like the amount that I would ask from you guys, right? If we get to 8 likes, then as soon as my wife and I start watching the next show, we will have another anime time. I don't want to say relatively soon, but we'll definitely be more motivated to keep cranking these out, you know? So leave it in the, leave a like in the video. Leave your thoughts, comments in the comment section below. What you thought about the video. If you watched this show, I want to hear your thoughts on it. Divulge what you think about it. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. All that in the comment section below. And without further ado, that's going to be it from your boy, SoresanCrockxen. And I will see you all in future videos, streams, shorts if I ever get around to doing them, and other content in the future. So have a good night, and I will see you all next time.